Long-term climate changes in 26,000 years cycle due to precession of the Earth's rotational axis. According to astronomical observations such as in Egypt 4,800 years ago, the celestial North Pole moves in a circle. When the Earth's axis of rotation tilts from a direction perpendicular to the equatorial plane, the direction of the solar wind colliding with particles in upper atmosphere of the Earth tilts, so the heat convection of the Earth's atmosphere is affected. Oxygen ions originating from the Earth were detected only when the Kaguya, an exploration satellite orbiting the Moon, crossed the Earth's shadow with the Moon. This is evidence that the solar wind and charged particles above the Earth are magnetically combined. The superrotation of Venus' atmosphere is one of evidence that the solar wind drives the atmosphere of planet. While Venus rotates in 243 days, the solar wind drives the superrotation of Venus by only 4 days cycle. The superrotation of Venus' night side is less regular than the rotational motion of the atmosphere on the day side. Charged particles running in parallel have the effect of magnetically coupling. Therefore, the solar wind and charged particles above the Earth are magnetically combined, so the Earth's atmosphere is driven by the solar wind continuously. However, the solar wind does not reach the ground, where the mean free path of atmosphere is very short. Since the solar wind rotating from west to east hits directly near the equator, the Earth's atmosphere moves from east to west to become a trade wind, and in mid-latitudes, it moves from west to east and blows westerly winds. Current rotational axis of Earth is tilted 23.4 degrees east. Therefore, Earth's atmosphere in the northern hemisphere blows from the south side to the north side due to the solar wind. Since there is wide continent in the northern hemisphere, the change of atmospheric temperature is large compared with southern hemisphere. So, glaciers are retreating in the summer and global warming has been progressing. In the northern hemisphere, the land area is larger and the seasonal change in temperature is greater than in the southern hemisphere. In that northern hemisphere, cities are developing and human activities are affecting the atmospheric temperature. The change of tilt on the rotational axis causes glaciers in the northern hemisphere to develop or retreat. 13,000 years ago, the solar wind was blowing on the Earth from the north, so glaciers developed on the continent during the winter season in the northern hemisphere. The expansion of glaciers has led to the cooling of the Earth. In the summer season on the south hemisphere, the sun irradiates the ocean for a long time, but the temperature rise at sea is small. The atmosphere moves from low latitudes to high latitudes, but the temperature does not rise as large because of wide area of ocean. So, the whole Earth was cooled, and this period was called as an ice age. Around 6,500 years ago, due to the progress of precession, the tilt of the Earth's axis of rotation became parallel to the equatorial plane of the solar wind, and the atmosphere continued to move at the same latitude. In Africa, wet areas have expanded as water vapor has begun to fall in the same area. Around 6,500 years ago, humans began to farm and settled in Mesopotamia. Civilization has developed. Around at 6,500 years ago, east side of Japan archipelago received wind from the Pacific Ocean all year round and the sea level at east coast became high. Conclusion. The Earth's long-term climate has been affected by the precession of rotational axis of the Earth via the solar wind. Thank you for your kind attention.